Now that the NFL draft is over, let's go over some fantasy targets that you can find or who was selected in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. All right, the first guy we're going to talk about is going to be Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker is somebody that's a little bit older coming out of college, but he has really good accuracy. A little bit on the injury-prone list for me, but I think he has the ability to be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. Going to the Lions, I think, is setting him up for success. They don't necessarily have to start Hendon Hooker out of the gate. Let's go ahead and look at the depth chart here. I do have Jared Goff ahead of him right now in the depth chart, but they are able to get rid of Jared Goff after the season and kind of save themselves from quite a large salary cap hit. Hendon Hooker could take over as early as next year, having Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery at running back, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta, another rookie that I love that they drafted. The Lions are looking really good. They've got to stack themselves up better on defense, but the offense is looking really good. Hendon Hooker can have the success in the NFL. I think the Lions are going to be built around really Hendon Hooker and what he can do and his abilities to get the ball out. I think Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta is absolute smash type of draft picks by these guys this year, and Hendon Hooker, if able to take over the starting quarterback role from Jared Goff next season, could be somebody that can help out your fantasy team, somebody you may want to look out for if you're definitely in a dynasty league, maybe somebody you can grab later on in the draft to give yourself a little bit of boost at the quarterback position, especially if you're in a super flex league. You can possibly have Hendon Hooker as your second quarterback next season, and I think he can actually provide quite a decent amount of fantasy value for you. Even though he is a little bit older, I still think the opportunity is there for Hendon Hooker to be a valuable asset for your team. Let's go ahead and go on to the next guy here at 69 overall. We're going to talk about Tank Dell. Tank Dell ended up going over here to the Houston Texans, and the one thing I like to say is CJ Stroud actually, whenever he was drafted, he told the Texans, I want Tank Dell. So I think that's going to be natural there. I think there's going to be some type of chemistry that he ends up beating there, and Tank Dell could end up as the wide receiver for this football team sooner rather than later. If you look at the depth chart here, CJ Stroud obviously going to be the starter over Davis Mills. The draft capital is there, being taken second overall. Running back, they landed Damian Pierce last year. Looks like he's a successful running back, going to be good there. Devin Singletary they got for the 3rd down role. At wide receiver, looks like there's a little bit of a blank there, and he got 2 rookie wide receivers that I really like, Tank Dell and Xavier Hutchinson, which we will talk about in a later video. But Robert Woods getting kind of older. Nico Collins, he's a decent receiver. Not sure he's a #1 wide receiver though. Tank Dell could take over that role. Even Xavier Hutchinson, I can see him up there as one of the top receivers for CJ Stroud. And then I'm getting Dalton Schultz over from the Cowboys, which is an outstanding tight end to kind of set CJ Stroud up for success here. So a bunch of fantasy talent here. They just need to get their defense better here, and I think they would be really nice. Tank Dell would be a nice player you might be able to add to yourself later on in your drafts, and he could become a premier wide receiver in this league. Easily top 15 wide receiver if everything goes right for Tank Dell. Going over to the next role here, and at number 71, we're gonna go to the Saints, picking up Kendre Miller. I do like Kendre Miller. He was one of the top running backs actually on my list, playing for TCU. I mean, he did an outstanding role. He can do a little bit of everything. He's not obviously the burner or the juking athletic type of guy, but he's a 3-down type of running back. He's got the size, he's got the speed good enough to be a good running back. We have to remember, let's go ahead and look at the depth chart here. Alvin Kamara could be in trouble and could be missing some games just due to his legal trouble. They did sign Jamal Williams, but let's just face it, I believe Kendre Miller is actually better than Jamal Williams as of right now. But I think Kendre Miller won't be able to get the reins early on in the season. They're definitely going to give Jamal Williams every opportunity to succeed, but they're going to be throwing in Kendre Miller, and if he can show some sparks, Miller could be the starting running back for the New Orleans Saints while Alvin Kamara is out. And then when Kamara comes back, possibly a nice little 1-2 punch between Kamara and Miller. At the wide receivers, you know, Mike Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed looking really good. They also grabbed another wide receiver in A.T. Perry, which we will talk about in a later video that I really do like as well. And Juwan Johnson at the tight end spot. Kendre Miller is somebody you can definitely get towards the end of your draft. Not a lot of people are really looking at Kendre Miller. It's almost like they forgot about him, and probably because he did no testing in the combine or whatever. He was kind of low radar type of thing. So, you know, watching a channel like this is going to give you some of those diamonds in the rough guys that you can really target later on in your draft to be very successful for your fantasy roster. So let's go ahead and go on to the next player here at drafted number 73 by the New York Giants. We're going to talk about Jalin Hyatt. Let's go ahead and just go straight over to the depth chart here. Jalin Hyatt, you see, I do as of right now have Wan'Dale Robinson and Isaiah Hodgins ahead of Jalin Hyatt. Hyatt's more of a nice little speedy wide receiver. He really showed out against the Alabama game, but other than that, he really hasn't done much for his college career. I think most people know him for the 3 touchdown game he had against Alabama, but somebody that could be just another weapon for Daniel Jones to use. Daniel Jones did get his contract that he wanted. Saquon Barkley, hopefully he gets a contract that he wants. They did also draft Eric Gray. He's an okay running back. Again, we'll talk about him in another video, but Jalin Hyatt, somebody you could possibly see as the number 2 target here behind Darren Waller if all goes well. I just don't think that Jalin Hyatt is going to be a phenomenal, outstanding wide receiver, but a very serviceable wide receiver, not only for the NFL, but for your fantasy roster. Look to target Hyatt towards the end of your draft or mid to late rounds of your draft, and somebody you might be able to put in as a wide receiver 3 or a flex starter for your league. So let's go ahead and go to the next guy at number 74 overall. We're going to talk about Cedric Tillman. So the Browns end up taking Tillman here. He's a nice 6'3" wide receiver. I think he's going to be really good for fantasy football eventually. I think he just needs the opportunities, right? Let's go ahead and look at the depth chart here. Deshaun Watson at quarterback with Dorian Thompson-Robinson behind that. I really do like that quarterback, but we'll talk about him in a later video as well. Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford here. They did move on from Kareem Hunt. So Amari Cooper right now is the X wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and they just acquired Elijah Moore. I think Cedric Tillman can beat Elijah Moore out, and I think he can beat Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think even Donovan Peoples-Jones might even be El Nixade next season. So Cedric Tillman can definitely find himself on the opposite side of Amari Cooper as a starting wide receiver, and I wouldn't be shocked. I think Cedric Tillman has the ability to be the number 1 wide receiver for this football team, and if he does, and can be linked to Deshaun Watson's main target, you've got an absolute steal of the draft in Cedric Tillman. I really do like this guy. I like what he can provide, and I do like that the opportunities that he has on the Browns. So, and a tight end, David Njoku, I think he's a good tight end for you to have as well. So let's go ahead and move on to the next guy here, and we're going to talk about 78 overall. We're going to talk about Tucker Kraft. Now, the Green Bay Packers did take Tucker Kraft second. They didn't take him as the number 1 tight end. They actually took Luke Musgrave, we talked about in the previous video. But let's go ahead and look at the depth chart here. Jordan Love, Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. They have the rookies from last year, Christian Watson and Romeo Dubes with Jaden Reed. We also talked about him last video. And Luke Musgrave, but Tucker Kraft, I believe, is actually the better tight end here. Tucker Kraft is a much better, he's good at run blocking and pass blocking, and he has the good enough hands. He's got some soft hands. He can make some good catches. So I think Tucker Kraft is definitely a better option here. If I had to draft between one of the two in a dynasty league, I would actually take Tucker Kraft over Luke Musgrave, even though I know there's a whole round draft capital difference with Luke being taken in the 2nd round. But even in the 3rd round draft capital, if Tucker Kraft comes out and he shows out, I think he can take the starting role from Luke Musgrave. I think they just grabbed 2 tight ends because they knew they had absolute dog crap there and they needed to do something. So Tucker Kraft, somebody that I can say you can probably take Tucker Kraft, one of your last options in the NFL draft, and I think you can have some sparks down there if they're able to get some type of chemistry with Jordan Love going. So let's go ahead and move on to the next guy here. We're going to talk about 79th overall, Josh Downs being taken by the Indianapolis Colts. And I do believe that Josh Downs is kind of overrated, right? I think overall, if you let's look at the depth chart. Gardner Minshew right now I do have as the starting quarterback over Anthony Richardson, but let's just face it, there's a lot of draft capital into Anthony Richardson, and he's just a freak of nature. He's going to take over sooner rather than later, and he has a strong arm. He likes to throw it down the field, and that's where Josh Downs really benefits from. He has that straight line speed. He can beat you. He doesn't have the route running ability from what I see, and I really don't like his hands that much. He can catch the ball, but he's not like spectacular at it. He's more of like a track runner. He just likes to let's just beeline it down there. You chunk the ball to me, and it could work out with him and Anthony Richardson. But somebody I wouldn't necessarily be targeting in my drafts. I just don't think that he will have the type of career that a lot of people are actually thinking that he's going to have. I know a lot of people really like Josh Downs. It's just he's a smaller wide receiver. I really like the ones that are 6'1" and higher. These little short slot type of wide receivers, they really just don't do much for me. They need some type of of big play to happen or more of a yak type of wide receiver. So, but overall, I think the Colts just, they're young. They need to get a lot better. They've got a lot to prove. They've got Jonathan Taylor at running back. It's just that Josh Downs, I don't think he has the ability to be a difference maker early on in his career. Let's go ahead and go over to the next guy here. We're going to talk about at 81 overall, running back Tajay Spears being taken over here by the Tennessee Titans. Let's go ahead and look at the depth chart here. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill's the starter right now. Will Levis will eventually take over just to see what he has in Will Levis. He's got a nice strong arm. Derrick Henry's still there. They're going to run the crap out of the ball, but I think this is the time where you start seeing Derrick Henry start taking a little bit less of a workload. I see Tajay Spears being that change of pace, small type of running back, taking a lot of pressure off of Derrick Henry, and he can easily, you know, pop one for a touchdown at any given point. Tajay Spears, kind of an electric type of running back who can just see a tiny little crease and be gone. Now, wide receiver, got a lot of young wide receivers here, Treylon Burks, Nick Westbrook, Ekine, and Kyle Phillips, and then Chigo down there at the tight end, which I really do like as well. So Tajay Spears overall, not somebody that I would technically go out there out of my way to grab. I don't think he is a 3-down ball carrier type of back. If Derrick Henry ends up retiring or getting released after this season or even traded during this season, I just don't see Tajay Spears being the guy that can come in here and give you your 20 carries. Him and Hassan Haskins will probably be splitting most of that workload if anything happens, and it just kind of limits the upside of fantasy football for that guy. So somebody I really wouldn't try to target if I was you. So I just kind of, you have some question marks there, and we just have to see how it rolls. Let's go over to the next guy here at 84 overall. Talk about Devin Achane, as drafted by the Miami Dolphins, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I wasn't crazy about Achane coming out just because of his just size. I mean, he's electrifying. He did great in college football. He can score the football. He's fast as all get out. The problem is he's just so small. I mean, if you touch this dude, he's getting flown across backwards. So, but yeah, you do have an old Raheem Mostert. You do have an older Jeff Wilson. You do have Devin Achane sitting right there in a dynamic offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, just looking at the depth chart here with Tua there, hopefully, God forbid, he definitely needs to stay healthy. But Devin Achane can take a large role from this offense. This is probably one of the best landing spots you can have for a running back. The problem is Raheem Mostert, he can't stay healthy whatsoever. And then Jeff Wilson's kind of like, meh. So if you got somebody like Devin Achane out there making some plays happen, he might be able to carve out just enough of a role to make some type of fantasy relevancy. Could be a flex play in 2023. We're just gonna have to wait and see what happens with him, but he could be a good target for Tua to kind of utilize. So let's go ahead and go into the next guy at 88 overall. We're going to talk about Tank Bigsby being taken by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Tank Bigsby right now, obviously he's being slotted in behind Travis Etienne. Let's go ahead and take a quick little gander here at this depth chart. Trevor Lawrence, the young prototypical quarterback right there. Travis Etienne, his friend, being a running back. Tank Bigsby should be backing him up. I do believe he will take over Jermichael Hasty's third down role there. Calvin Ridley coming back. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram, great pass catchers. They just need Travis Etienne to have somebody to kind of take over for him and kind of spot and give some runs. And I think Tank Bigsby is a good running back. I honestly wish that Tank Bigsby could have went to a different team. I'd have loved Tank on maybe Miami or even the Bengals, something like that. I think I'd have been a lot more excited for Tank Bigsby, but being Travis Etienne, being so young and being the rapport that he already has with Trevor Lawrence, I don't see Tank Bigsby really being much of anything as far as fantasy relevant in the in an NFL or for your fantasy team. So somebody I would definitely just stay away from in your drafts. Next guy we're gonna go ahead and talk about here is from the Pittsburgh Steelers at 93, and that's Darnell Washington. This guy, I was super excited. He makes a spectacular catch at the combine, but he was having some knee problems that scared a lot of teams away, is why he dropped all the way to the third round. He was being mocked, including one of the mock drafts that I did, in the into the first round type of tight end. He's got freakish type of ability. I mean, he's got the height, he's got the weight, he's definitely got the hands. But he landed an opportunity where it kind of says, oh my gosh, what the crap is this? Not only did Pat Freiermuth, a young tight end that I was excited about, now he has another young tight end that I'm also excited about in Darnell Washington. You put them together, and it just kind of filters down the opportunities that these guys are going to have. Hell, it's great for Kenny Pickett. It's just bad for Pat Freiermuth, and it's bad for Darnell Washington. So somebody I wouldn't technically go out there and try to get. Hopefully he can heal up that knee a little bit, but even if when he gets the opportunity, he's never going to be the starting tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because Pat Freiermuth has that on the clink clank. He's got it down. You're not taking over that starting job from him, so he's just kind of not going to really do much for your fantasy team, and that it is what it is. Going over to the next guy at 94 overall, we're going to talk about Michael Wilson being taken from the Arizona Cardinals. Somebody that I do like Michael Wilson. I think he has the talent to do something. I think eventually he could take over that wide receiver 3 role, and eventually when they do move on from DeAndre Hopkins, you can be looking at a wide receiver group of Marquise Brown and Michael Wilson together. He has the opportunities to sit there and be a main outside wide receiver. He's got the hands, he's got the ability. Not somebody that I would technically go out there and say, oh my gosh, he's making some spectacular plays, I need to get on my roster, but somebody who could eventually be something in fantasy football. If you wanted to take a late round flyer on Michael Wilson, I wouldn't hate you about it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to try to grab Michael Wilson whatsoever. So let's go over to the next guy at 100 overall. The Raiders took Trey Tucker. This is a wide receiver that I'm not crazy about myself. I think he's more of a speedster type of wide receiver, maybe even a special teams type of wide receiver. I don't think he cracks the top 3. I think if we look at the depth chart here, I've got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Meyer, and Hunter Renfrow all ahead of Trey Tucker, and I barely edged him out with Keelan Cole. I think just being on special teams kind of helps him out quite a bit. We'll have to see if he can be more of a sure-handed type of wide receiver. He is really good after the catch. He can make some things happen, but I think overall for the Raiders, they could have done better. That I believe they had more needs than that wide receiver spot, but they took him. He's got 3rd round draft capital. He could be something in the NFL, but he's not something, again, I would really look forward to for your fantasy draft. So, and let's go over the last guy we're going to go over today, and that's going to be at pick 101, where the 49ers took tight end Cameron Latu. This guy, I'm just going to put it out there, guys. I just think he's straight trash. I don't think he's something that you need to even look at, turn the other way. Not only is he buried in the depth chart behind George Kittle, but he's just not a very good tight end, I believe. I don't have any faith in this guy to make anything happen for you. Looking at that depth chart, with Brock Purdy and Chris McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle, there's just no room for another tight end there. I think he's going to be more of a pass blocker, if anything. But Cameron Latu, somebody I would just stay far away for your fantasy team. So let's go ahead and break down a couple of these guys that I think will be fantasy relevant for this season for you, somebody you might want to target. First guy I want to talk about here in the 3rd round at 69 overall, we're going to talk about Tank Dell. Again, I think CJ Stroud wants Tank Dell on the team. He volleyed for him to be on the team. I think eventually Tank Dell could be the #1 wide receiver for a growing CJ Stroud, and that's going to be exciting to see, exciting to watch, and exciting as they kind of mature together. So the next guy we're going to talk about here in the 3rd round is at 71 overall, and that's going to be Kendre Miller. Now, I don't think that he's going to be fantasy relevant necessarily early on. I think they're going to give every opportunity to Jamal Williams to be the guy, but Kendre Miller has all the tools in his tool belt to be the #1 running back for this football team, especially with Alvin Kamara missing some time. He could be somebody you can get towards the end of your draft, and you never know. You could find some lightning in a bottle and boom, have yourself a starting running back for the New Orleans Saints who does like to run the football. Other than that, another guy on round 3 here at pick number 73, we're going to talk about Jalen Hyatt. Somebody, again, lightning in the bottle we're talking about. So he could be good, he could be putrid, right? But I think it's worth to take a flyer on just based on what he's done in a couple of the games in college football. He's a boom or bust type of guy in my book, and I think just with the lack of wide receiver options that the Giants have and Daniel Jones has, I think it's easy to take a flyer on Jalen Hyatt and see if you can find yourself a #1 wide receiver here. It's not going to cost you much in the draft, and you could have somebody that could be special for your lineup. Again, I'm not crazy about him, but somebody I believe that you should definitely take a chance on. Now coming at pick 78, again, I'm going to go over him again. Tucker Kraft. I think he is the best tight end on this roster. I think he has the ability to catch the ball. He has the ability to block, and I think he's better than Musgrave, the guy who was drafted ahead of him in the 2nd round. So I would definitely take a flyer. I don't think Kraft is on nobody's radar. Take him up with one of your last picks and see if you can he can develop into something, and boom, you got yourself a nice tight end. The last guy I'm going to talk about here in round 3 you might want to pick up is at pick 84, and it's going to be Devin Achane. I think he just landed in an amazing opportunity spot, so a spot that he can definitely type of amount to something for your fantasy team, at least into a flex, especially if he plays in some type of gadget role. I think with Jalen Waddle, and you got Tyreek Hill, and you add Devin Achane to this whole group, I think you've got some absolute lightning and absolute fire going on in this offense. Fireworks can happen. You could take a screenshot of Devin Achane, he could take it to the house. So other than that, I think that is probably one of the best landing spots you could probably think of for Devin Achane. Go ahead and take a flyer on him in your draft. As always, thank you for watching the video. If you hadn't hit that subscribe button, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. It's going to really help you out prepare for your league this year. Now that we're pumping out weekly videos week in and week out to help you succeed and ultimately hold up the trophy for your league. I can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.